Welcome to Live DAF, your online DAF Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem and welcome back to today's DAF Hayemi Bava Kamma DAF Lamedal. We are holding 6 lines off the top of the Amud. Tanu Rabbanon we have learned in a brisa. Shoir Shava Mosayim Shenogach Shoir Shava Mosayim. Reuven has a shoir, Shimon has a shoir, Reuven's shoir injured Shimon's shoir. Now Reuven's shoir was worth 200 zuz, and likewise Shimon's shoir was worth 200 zuz. How much was the damage? So he went down 50 zuz in value. From 200, he dropped to 150. Then, v'shavach, for some reason, the value of animals experienced an upsurge, a sudden upsurge, and the victim's animal, Shimon's shoir, went up to 400. V'shavach v'amad al arba meyazuz. So perhaps Reuven could tell Shimon, look, I haven't really caused you any damage, because ultimately, look where you're holding. Well, Shimon can respond, what are you talking about, Shil? If not for the fact that you harmed my shoir, he would have been worth even more today. So you can't say, well, you didn't cause me any damage. Sure you did. If not for this episode, he would have been worth double. So of course, we ignore the fact that it went up in value. Ultimately, it's all about the nezek that happened at the point of the attack. So basically, he owes him for that 50 zuz. If he was a muad, he gives him 100% of that. Otherwise, he gives him $25. Kachash. Now, let's say Shimon's shur, the victim's shur, went down in value. Okay, so at the point of the attack, it was only a 50 zuz loss, but now the animal deteriorated and it's worth even less. Is he responsible for its current value or not? Yeah, it's all about when Bezdin gets involved, because as the Gemara will explain, ultimately it was the attack that caused it to deteriorate, to lessen in value even further, and therefore he has to compensate him for that as well. So this is segment 1 of the brisa, discussing where the victim, the shoir of Shimon, either experienced an upsurge or a downsurge in value. What about the attacker, Shavach Mazik? What if the Mazik, Reuven's shoir, went up in value? So Shimon can't say, look, the fact is, I was meant to collect my dues from your animal, I have ownership in the animal, no. The fact is, even if it went up in price, the nizik has no claim on that added value. So basically, he only gets whatever he deserves based on the value of the animals at the point of the attack. Kachash. So basically, he gets, if he lost 50, so he gets his $25 and he's done. Kachash. Let's say the mazik's animal went down in value. So whose loss is that? Does Shimon also have to lose, proportionate to his claim of the animal? Yeah, kishas hamada bedin. So here he loses. He loses some percentage of his claim, because when he had that $50 claim, which basically gave him 25 because it was a tam, so that part, that 25 claim that he had in the animal is tantamount to like an ownership. And when the animal goes down in value, he loses that much. And the more soon will explain, because it appears like we're talking contradictions here. Does the animal relate to Shimon? So then, likewise, he should gain if it goes up in value. And if it doesn't belong to him, so why does he lose if it goes down? We'll see in a minute. Okay, so let's go back. Let's review the entire brisa. So let's first focus on the second part. Shavach mazik, noisin k'shas hanezik. The attacking animal experienced an upsurge in value. So the nizak, Shimon is not entitled to that extra value. He gets whatever he deserves based on the sha'as anezek, the time of the attack. He doesn't own the animal. He has no ownership. He has no stake in the animal. Money, Rabbi Shmuel. Oh, this is who's speaking? That's Rabbi Shmuel. The Amar Bal Chayvu v'zuziu the Masekle. Rabbi Shmuel, as opposed to Rabbi Kiva, who said that the nizak becomes sort of a part owner. Rabbi Shmuel disagrees. At most, you have a claim. You have a shibud. Right? Bal Chayv. I have a monetary claim on you. I don't have an actual ownership in the animal. Therefore, if it goes up in value, it's not my gain. Well, so why do I lose if it goes down in value? The price continues. If it goes down, if it drops. We look at its current value. Why? That must be Rabbi Kiva speaking, who considers me an owner. So I'm Rabbi Kiva. The Amar Shutfin, we're both partners. So how does this work? Reisha Rabbi Shmuel. So you mean the first part is Rabbi Shmuel, the Sefer Rabbi Kiva, and the second part Rabbi Kiva? Which seems a bit odd. Loi, so that's more you're right. Kula Rabbi Kiva he. The entire halacha, the Reisha and the Sefer, all reflect Rabbi Kiva's shita that in fact Shimon becomes an owner, a part owner. So therefore, if it goes down, if it drops in value, he loses, proportionate to his stake in the animal. So the question is, so if it goes up in value, why doesn't he gain? We're speaking kishapitmai. It didn't just experience a market surge. What happened was that the owner, Reuben, stuffed the animal, he fed it, so it was due to his effort and to his expense that the animal now experienced a surge in value. And Shimon has no claim on that. And that explains why he doesn't have a chelak of the shvach, of the gain. Well, so if the Brisa, in discussing increase in value, is speaking specifically where he made the effort, he invested in it, so then Ema Reisha. Let's go back to the first part of the Brisa, discussing an increase or decrease in value on account of the nizak, nizak's animal. So it says there, well, shavach v'amad al dad me'ezuz noisen kishas nezek. If he damaged him, $50, and then he went up in value, we ignore that upsurge in value, and he still has to stick to his commitment based on the damage at the point of the attack. Well, if the reason for the increase in value is not based on market increase, rather based on personal effort and investment, why even discuss this? Of course, if the nizak, if Shimon invested money and brought about an increase in the value of his animal, of course, why would Reuben, the attacker, have any stake in that? Omar Papa, you're right. Reisha. In fact, this first part of the Brisa, discussing where the nizak went up in value, it can happen either way. Mishkachas law. It can apply whether bein the patma petumi, whether he stuffed it and invested in it, so it was due to personal effort, bein the shafcha mela, or it happened due to market fluctuation. So you're right, it could have happened either way. The Isvach Shmina, the Brisa is actually the ikar, the main point of the Brisa is to teach us the hechad shafcha mela. In a case where it experienced a natural upsurge in value, not due to personal investment, nice and like kashasa nezek, so we ignore the upsurge in value and the attacker has to pay him based on what happened at the point of the attack. We ignore the fact that he actually, sort of got back, the upsurge, the increase in value sort of erased the losses experienced at the nezek. We ignore that part because it's none of my business. What you gain based on marketing, I damaged, I hurt you, I got to pay for it. Safer. Whereas the second part of the Brisa, which discusses the mazik going up in value, in that case, it only works out, meaning this halacha that the nizak cannot have a stake in that, is only el kishapitmai. So certainly according to Rabbi Kiva, who considers the nizak as a part owner, why do we ignore that? Because the increase in value was due to personal investment, personal expenditures. Okay? Now, the Brisa continues, where the nizak, his animal, went down since the time of the attack, we look at its current value, and the mazik has to compensate for that as well. Why? Let's think. Why, in fact, did he lose value? Was it because he was put to work? Right? So he's worn out. Well, why do I have to pay for that? So Reuben can tell Shimon, look, you're working your animal to the bone, and I have to pay for it? That's not fair. Amar Vashi, Maka was speaking that the loss of value was simply as a result of the attack. So it deteriorated based on, as a result of the attack. And that makes sense that Reuben should pay for the Amarle, because Shimon can tell Reuben, Karna de Turach, it's an expression, the horn of your attacking animal, Kvirobe is embedded in my animal, meaning the attack is what's actually causing a deterioration, and therefore you are accountable for that as well. So bottom line is, we have a shur attacking another shur, and there was either an increase or decrease in value. So it depends. If we're speaking about the nizak, the victim, going up or down in value, so if it goes up in value, even if it was nishbach memela, it simply experienced a market upsurge, the mazik cannot take that into account. He's responsible regardless based on what happened during the attack. If it went down in value, then he has to pay for that as well, as we just explained. If the mazik's animal went up or down, so if it lost value, so according to Rekiva, the Shimon is a part owner, so he has to sort of suffer that loss as well, together with Reuven, because the part owner. If it goes up in value, so it depends. If it experienced a natural surge in value, so once again, Reuven and Shimon are both stakeholders in that. Whereas if Reuven actually invested and was mefatim, then that's none of Shimon's business. Continues the Mishnah. Shar shavim masayim. Shenogach shar shavim masayim. So we have Reuben and Shimon, both have an animal. Reuben's shar worth 200. Shimon's shar worth 200. And Reuben's shar attacks Shimon's shar. Ve'ena nevelu yafaklum. He killed Shimon's shar, and the nevelu of the carcass is not worth anything. So ultimately the damage was 200. And since we're speaking about a shar tam, he's responsible for 100. Amar Rabbi Meir, says Rabbi Meir, this is exactly as described in the pasuk. Al zanemar, on this the pasuk says, on this type of case, it says, so they sell the attacking animal, which was worth 200. They split the money. Each one gets 100, which is half the amount of the damage. Omar loy Rabbi Yehuda. So Rabbi Yehuda responds, it's actually correct in terms of factually correct. But this is not the scenario described in the pasuk. Because ultimately you fulfilled first part of the pasuk, you sell the attacker. You split the proceeds. But what happened to the second part of the pasuk? There's another element here. You haven't fulfilled you meant to split the dead animal as well. So ultimately, your case is not reflective of the pasuk. So what is the case described in the pasuk where they split both animals? So basically, both Reuben and Shimon have an equal stake in both animals, the attacker and the victim. Zeh shor shava masayim. In a different case, Reuben's animal is worth 200. Shenogach shor shava masayim, who killed Shimon's animal, worth 200. V'anavelu yafa chameshim zuz. But there's some value left in the nevela, 50 zuz. So damage totaled 150. It was a shor tam. So Shimon's only entitled to half of that, 75 of the 150. Right? His animal is still worth 50. So he wants to walk home with 125 out of his original 200 for a loss of 75, which is half the damage, which, that makes sense, right? So on this, the pasuk says, how did they get to this formula? You split both, the attacker and the victim. Because the attacker, which is worth 200, the split is divided equally, each one gets 100, and the victim, the dead animal, is worth 50, each one gets 25 of that. So every one of these fellows, Reuben and Shimon, walks home with 125, which is perfect for what they deserve. So it doesn't seem at this point that there's any machlekes, any conceptual machlekes between Rabbi and Rabbi Yehuda. It's just that Rabbi Yehuda is saying, look, In your case, where the nevela is worth nothing, worthless, so you haven't really gotten to the point of the pasuk where you split the animals, both the attacker and the victim. Rather, the pasuk is describing my case, where ultimately they have to split both animals. Tanarabban, shor shava masayim, shenogach shor shava masayim. Right, so both are worth 200. V'nevel yafa 50 zuz. Nevel is worth 50. Ze noitel chatzi achai, chatzi ameis. V'ze noitel chatzi achai, v'chatzi ameis. V'zehu shor hamer b'Torah. This is exactly as described in the pasuk. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Omer. No, ain't a shor hamer b'Torah. No, this is not the pasuk. The case that the pasuk is describing. Ella rather is talking about the next case. Shor shava masayim. Shenogach l'shor shava masayim. Right, as per Meir's case in the Mishnah, we have a 200 animal killing another 200 animal, worth nothing now. On this the pasuk says, you sell the attacking animal, which is worth 200. It's divided equally, 100 for Reuven, 100 for Shimon, and you're good to go. So what does the pasuk mean when it says sell the dead animal? It's just sort of a formula. Whatever loss was experienced through the attack, through the misa, in this case, full loss, total loss of 200, you collected from the living animal, from the attacker, from migufay. That's all the pasuk means. Not literally you sell the mace. It's worthless, nothing to sell. So now, bottom line is, there doesn't seem to be a machlekes in terms of concept, in terms of, halacha. It's just a question of what did the pasuk mean? Was it this case or that case? But ultimately, everybody agrees you pay 50% of the actual damage, and you pay it from the chay. So michti, let's take a close look. Bein Rab Meir, Bein Rabbi Yehuda, both shittas, hay 125 shekel, vay 125 shekel. In the case where the nevela was worth 50, so he lost 150. It dropped from 200 to 50. So the nezek amounted to 150, out of which he deserves only 75 because it was a short tam. So he wants a 75, plus the animal which is not worth 50. He walks away with 125, and so does the attacker. Right? Because, like we said before, we split the attacker and the victim. The attacker is worth 200, each one gets 100. The nevela is worth 50, each one gets 25. So each one walks away with 125. So everybody agrees. Even Ramir agrees. That's how you proceed. So my benai, any difference between Ramir and Rabbi Yehuda in terms of halacha? Amar Rava, yeah, there's a subtle difference. P'chas nevela ika benayu. Suppose after the attack, the nevela dropped in value even further. Sort of like we said before, it lost value even further until it got to by the time you got to the bezdin. By the time you got to the collect in court, the animal was worth even less than it was worth at the time of the attack. But now that would be the difference between Rameir and Rabbi Yehuda. That little bit. Who's responsible? Rameir Savar, P'chas Nevela Denizakavi. Shimon, it's Shimon's loss. Rabbi Yehuda Savar, P'chas Nevela Demazakavi. Reuben has to account for that as well. Demazakavi Palga, half of that he has to account for. Because the pasuk clearly sort of grants Reuven a stake in the dead animal. It's similar to Rabbi Akiva, but it's in the reverse. Rabbi Akiva was speaking where Shimon gets a stake in the attacking animal. Here we go the other way. Reuven, the attacker, has a stake, has a financial sort of ownership in the victim, the nizak's animal, to the extent that if it goes down in value, he's accountable. He suffers at least partial loss. Amalei Abai says like this: Rava, how could you say that, according to Rabbi Yehuda, by the shor of Etz Shor Tam, the B'chas Nevela is applied to the Mazik? We learned way back in the beginning of Masechta that when it comes to Shor Muad, B'chas Nevela is totally the Nizak's issue. Amalei Abai came Matzin Rabbi Yehuda Tam Chamor Meimud. They mean to say that according to Rabbi Yehuda, a Tam has a strictness over Muad. By Muad, I'm not responsible, but by Tam I am. No, so maybe Rabbi Yehuda holds that a tam is more severe than a muad. Well, you can't say that. Sorry, because it's not. As we find, in fact, we do find that to a certain extent, a tam has a stringency over a muad. Listen to this. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, tam chai b'muad potter. This is where he, there's some sort of, lackluster shmira pechusa, some minimal, shmira. He applied a very minimal level of security over his animal, and by a tam, if he went out and he harmed and he attacked, he's chai. By a muad, he's potter. We'll see later in the Masechta. So we see that a tam, in fact, has a chumrah over a muad. So maybe it makes sense that here too, by the pchas misa, the muad is I'm more responsible by the tam, but by the muad. Well, ema the shamas Rabbi Yehuda is true, but this is only linear shmira. When does Rabbi Yehuda say that a tam has a chumrah? That's only with respect to the the level of shmira required. Because it's based on psukim. Linear tashlumin mishamas. But ultimately, when it comes to actually paying financial responsibility after the attack, how can you suggest that a tam is more culpable than a muad? In fact, we have a brayso which clearly articulates. Otherwise, Vatanya, Rabbi Yehuda Omer. Rabbi Yehuda says like this. So, this is based on Rabbi Yehuda's formula that we split the attacker and the victim, right? Yochel, if that's the case. So perhaps we'll come up with a situation that a tam will have to pay more than he actually damaged. Listen to this. Rabbi Yehuda Yochel shor shavamana. We have a new case. A shor worth 100. Shenagach shor shavay chamesh slaim. He attacked a shor worth barely 5 slaim. A sela is 4 zuz, so 5 times 4 is 20. So the 100 attacked the 20. V'neveli off a sela. And the nevela now dropped from 5 to 1 sela, or 4 zuz. Okay, so basically it was a very lopsided arrangement. The attacker was worth way more, 5 times as much as the victim, right? So according to me, we split everything. So Reuben will sort of really have a really severe loss here. You mean everybody gets an equal share, equal stake in the attacker and the victim? In which case, Shimon will come up really gaining here. His whole animal was only worth 5 sela to begin with. Now he's going to walk away with tons. Because he's going to get half of the attacker? You can't say that. Amrus, how can you say that? Well, when the muad stands out, why does the muad stand out? To what extent? To be machmer on the muad? Or to make it easier on the muad? Of course, a muad stands higher in terms of culpability and responsibility. Nezek shalom instead of chatzi nezek. So now, now, if a muad only pays as much as he damaged, you don't pay more. Tam hakal l'koshken, certainly a tam who's less than a muad. Of course, you can't pay more than the actual damage. So this formula doesn't hold water. Even when I say you get half the chai, half the mace, that's only when ultimately it doesn't result in the attacker paying more than he deserves to pay. Okay, so bottom line is that we do see in this price, even Rabbi Yehuda sort of labels a tam as a kal who's meant to be treated less severely than a muad. So how can you say when it comes to the loss of value, the deterioration on the nevela, the pchas nevela, that when it comes to a muad, the attacker is not responsible for that loss of value. That pchas that happened between the attack and the ultimate, collection. And a tam will be responsible. It's unrealistic. Elam Rabbi Yehuda. So you cannot suggest that this is the point of machlekes between Rabbi May and Rabbi Yehuda. Rather, says Rabbi Yehuda, I'll tell you what the machlekes is. Shevach neveli kibbenai. Oh, if there's an upsurge in value, there's an increase in value. If the nevel goes up in value from the time of the attack until today, that's the machlekes. The Mar Sava Denizakavi, Umar Savar Palgi. Rameir says, you, the attacker, you have no business tapping into my increase in value. It's totally mine. Whereas Rabbi Yehuda says, well, ultimately, the attacker and the victim have an equal stake. They split. If there's any increase in value that the nevela experienced between the attack and today. So that's the machlekes. That's going to be the maskon. That's going to be the conclusion. This is the only point of machlekes. There are lots of numbers, lots of cases, but ultimately that's the point of machlekes. Rameir says, Reuben has no financial stake, no ownership in the nizik's animal. Therefore, if it goes up in value, he has no claim on that. Whereas Rabbi Yehuda says he has a partial claim on that. V'hainu dekaka shalei Rabbi Yehuda. So based on this idea, that according to Rabbi Yehuda, the mazik gets a proportionate chelik of the shevach of nevela. So Rabbi Yehuda had a kasha. Ha shad amros chas rachmana iloyo the mazik the shakal b'shvacha. Now that we've established that the Torah rachmana, lashon rachmanas, Torah is rachmanas, that the Torah had rachmana chas, had mercy on the mazik, made it easier for him, gave him a sort of a discount, gave him a pass, the shakal b'shvacha, that he's entitled to part of that gain of the nevela. So perhaps let's take it a step further. Maybe we can even find a case where the mazik walks away gaining from the deal. If somehow the numbers work out that way. Listen to this. The mazik not only will he not have to pay, he'll walk away gaining from the attack. So perhaps in a case where the shur that was worth 5 sela, shenagach shur shava mana, struck a shur worth 100 zuz, which is 25 sela. Okay, so the 5 sela is 20 zuz. He struck a shur worth 100. V'anevelu yafa 50 zuz. Okay, so the victim dropped from the attacked animal, went down from 100 to 50 zuz. Okay, so the attacker was worth 20. The nevela is worth 50. So do we say they split the attacker and the victim equally? After all, that's Rabbi Yehuda's formula, right? Zenoit l'chatzi achai v'chatzi ameis. V'zenoit l'chatzi achai v'chatzi ameis. So both Reuben and Shimon will be entitled to 50% of both animals. Let's make out the numbers. So if the attacker is worth 20, each one gets 10 of that. If the nevela is worth 50, each one gets 25 of that. So each fellow walks away with 35, right? So the mazik ended up gaining on the deal. He profited from the attack. His animal was only worth 20 to begin with. Now he's getting more than that. Nah, you can't say that. Amr's response is Heichad Matzinu, mazik niskar. You never find that a person who perpetuated attacks, who was a mazik, he should walk away gaining. That's doesn't make sense, right? Mazik niskar shezen niskar. Why would you say v'omer? Not only that, the pasuk says yishalim yishalim. You got to pay. Baalim misham, the owner of the attacking animal has to pay. Vein baalim noitlan. You don't gain from it. Right? So basically, according to Rabbi Yechna, to summarize, the machlekes between Rabbi and Rabbi is shevach. If there's any gain that the nevela experienced post-attack, Rabbi Meir says it all belongs to the nizik. Rabbi says they both split it, and based on that idea, basically we see that the Torah gave the mazik some sort of entitlement. What if it turns out that he'll end up gaining on the deal? No, you don't take it that far. Unfeasible. You can't say that. Not only that, it says shalom yishalom. You pay, you don't profit. What's the point of the pasuk? Why do you have to add the pasuk? Perhaps you'll say, Maybe. When will the attacker not profit? That's when the nizak ultimately did experience some loss due to the attack. But let's say we can find a case where the nizak actually gains as well. Let's say he has no loss. Keep going, for instance, is a new case. The attacker was worth 5 sela. The victim was worth 5. And suddenly there was an upsurge. The Nevelas are now worth way more. He went up to 30 zuz. So perhaps in this case it's very unique because the nizak experienced no loss. So maybe shakal nami mazak b'shvacha. So perhaps in this case, the mazak will have a stake in the extra, in the shvach. Right? So the nizak went from 5 sela, which is 5 selas, 20 zuz, a sela is 4 zuz. It went up to 30. So there was a gain of 10. So perhaps the mazak will take 5 of those 10. So the mazik is gaining, but ultimately the nizak is not losing either. He's also gaining. He's gaining his 5 dinar. What happens here? On that we need the pasuk. No, Va'aymer, the pasuk says you got to pay. Ultimately, you have to walk away paying. Shalom yishalom, balam yishalom, vein balam noitlan. You have to pay. You can't walk away profiting from the deal. Okay. So bottom line is even Rabbi Yehuda who says that if there's any shvach on the nevela, the mazik gets a part of that. But that's only if ultimately he'll end up paying something. You can't profit from the deal. And even in the case where the nizik is also not losing, still you have to pay. You can't walk away gaining from the deal. But based on this, we're going to have a peculiar situation. According to Rabbi Yehuda, that we split the chai, we split the mace, it can come out a situation where the tam will pay more than 50%. The pasuk says no, you pay 50%. The machos hashar chai v'chatzos kaspa, he split, and Rabbi Yehuda all over in Masechta doesn't seem to indicate is there any case where the time pays more than 50%. Now Rashi explains, what does he mean to ask? Here comes a new case. Listen to this. A shar worth 50 was negeach a shar worth 40. Okay, 50 hit a 40. How much is the nevela worth? It dropped to 20. So the nezek is 20. He's a tam, pays 50%. He pays 10. Okay, so the chatzin that he really owes is 10. But now, if we apply the double split formula, we split the chai and split the mace. So the chai was worth 50, is worth 50. They both split it. They both have 25 of that. And the mace is worth 20. They both split that. Each one gets 10. So each one walks away 35. So the mazik only gets back 35. His share was worth 50. He only walks away 35. So he's really paying 15. How much was the damage? Again, the nizik was worth 40 and went down to 20. Damage was 20. He only owes him half of that, which is 10. He's now losing 15. That's not fair. So according to Rabbi Meir, you don't work with 50, splitting the chai and the mace. It's all about, okay, how much was the damage? Split that into 2, and I'll give you, half of that. Pretty simple, straightforward formula. But according to Rabbi Yehuda, I understand, we explained before that you never pay more than the actual damage. We said a tam can't be worse than a muad, right? You can't walk away gaining. We worked, through all that, right? But let's say you have a case where I'll pay somewhere, in between 50% and 100%. Is he going to be responsible for that? Right? Because ultimately it's less than the actual damage. So he's still paying less than a muad, which is fair, but it's more than chatzi nezek. It doesn't seem anywhere in the Masechta that you pay more than Chatzi Nezek. Says the Gemara, you're right on. Even Rabbi Yehuda agrees that you only pay 50%. Isle, the Rabbi Yehuda, Pchas, Shepachsa Misa, Machzin Bachai. Even Rabbi Yehuda agrees to Rabbi Meir's idea that, of course, you look at the Pchas, Shepachsa Misa, the loss incurred through the attack, and that you collect from the living animal. You don't pay never pay more than 50% by a tam. The point of Machlekes is just about that, that subtle point of the Shvach, Nevela, if it goes up in value. Rabbi Yehuda holds he has a stake in that as well. Rabbi Meir says no, but ultimately in terms of the actual, culpability and responsibility by a tam, it's only 50% of the damage. Now, Menole, how would Rabbi Yehuda know this halacha? Because according to Rabbi Yehuda, we already used this pasuk to teach us that he has a stake in the Nevela, he gets the part of the Shvach. He learns it from that pasuk. The same like Rabbi Meir. What do you mean? Well, he used that pasuk. It's unavailable. We already used that pasuk to teach you get half stake in the dead animal. In the pasuk would say, look, they sell the living animal, and the mace as well. That teaches you that you look at the loss incurred to the mace, and that's what you pay 50% of. My vegam. Why does the pasuk add the word vegam as a mace? That teaches the next halacha as well that the attacker has a right to collect part of the shvach, as we explained before. So both halachas learned from the same pasuk. Okay, but it sounds a bit complicated. More complicated than it really is, because ultimately, according to the conclusion, the Maskana of the Gemara, all agree. A Moed pays 100%, Tam pays 50%. The only machlekes will be regarding Shvach Nevela. So if there is a Pchas Nevela, if there's a loss in the Nevela since the attack, all agree the Nizak has to account for that. But if there's a Shvach Nevela, Rameir says, it's the Nizak's gain all the way. Rabbi Yehuda says the Mazik has a part of that, so he sort of is entitled to a proportionate stake in the increase in value that the Nevela experienced from the attack until today. Continues the Mishnah. Yesh chayev amase sheri, poter amase atzma. Ironically, there are certain cases where a person is responsible for what his animal does, but in a similar case, if he himself would have done it, he wouldn't be responsible. And the same in the reverse. Potter al-masa shari, v'chayv al-masa atzmi. Sometimes there's an exemption for what the shari does, but if he himself does it, he's chayv. Ketzad. Examples of the first category. Shari should be ish potter, who should be ish chayv. If an animal embarrasses somebody, there's no boishes by an animal, you don't pay, but if a person embarrasses, he pays. Shari shesime yesein avdai, v'ipil shinei potter. If his shari injured his Evet Kanani's eye, knocked out his eye or his tooth, the Evet doesn't go free, but if he does it to his animal, to his Evet, the Evet goes free. If a person strikes at a person's parents, he's chayiv for those damages. But if he does it to his parents, right, injuring a parent is liable to misa. When a person gets misa, he's exempt from financial payments, so he's part. Another example, if his animal ignited the granary on Shabbos, his friend's granary, you have to pay for it. But if he does it, he's potter, because that's a malacha. Chayiv misa. When there's a chayiv misa, we say, Kim levid Rabbi Mineh, you got the most severe punishment, you don't pay. Mishum is chayiv b'nafshe. Tani Rabbi Avo Kamed Rabbi Yechon. Rabbi Avo presented a price Rabbi Yechon. Call him a kalknam turin. On Shabbos, when a person acts in a destructive manner, that's not considered a malacha. Malacha needs to be something constructive, resembling the binyan hamishkan, right? Nachas machshas, destruction. That's not a malacha. You potter. Chutz mechayvel u'maver, except injuring and lighting a fire, even though they're essentially destructive acts. You're chayiv. Rashi brings. How do we know this? The fact that the Torah needs to allow us to do bris milah on Shabbos. Bris milah is a chavala. It's an injury. Apparently, a regular chavala is chayiv. Next, the fact that the Torah says you can't apply the streifa, the burning, the misa through streifa, the Bezdin can't do that on Shabbos. Why discuss it? It's mekalkal, destroying, burning. Apparently, destruction by fire is considered a malach. Omer lei, so Rabbi Yehuda responds, go out, Tani lebra, teach it outside of the base medrash. It's not a reliable halacha. Chayvul u'maver ain't a mishnah. It's not a mishnah, it's not a reliable halacha. Any sort of acts of destruction, be it burning, is patur on Shabbos. Even if you would suggest, you want to insist that it is a mishnah, it is a reliable halacha, that's only in a very specific case, where there's an element of constructiveness in that burning, in that injury. For instance, let's say he injures an animal, whatever, because he wants the blood to feed his dog. Okay, so there's some sort of benefit involved. Maver, why would he be chai for burning? Specifically in the case where he needs the ashes. So the burning was l'tayelis, was for a benefit, and therefore only in those cases would he be chai on Shabbos, but just plain acts of destruction would not incur any liability on Shabbos. Okay, we're going to continue this from tomorrow, make a reference to our Mishnah and see the sugya further. Okay, ultimately we have an machlekes between Rabbi and Rabbi Yehuda regarding the shlach nevela. The first piece we had the case where the animal, whether the mazik or the nizik's animal, went up or down in value, and there was a shayla there in terms of whether you can account for that. We discussed that in great length, and we have the Mishnah here, which contrasts the mass of a person to the mass of the shur. We have several cases where a person is chayev for the shur is doing, whereas in a similar situation he himself doing the same masa would not be chayev. All the best to you and hatzlacha rabbah.